So now I just want to go ahead and actually quickly implement our session factory. So you can see it's going to be very similar to all that we've done so far. If you've been watching the previous videos, it's a very simple class, and all it does is it creates an object of that class that we're trying to instantiate, and we can pass in any dependency that that object requires. It's a very powerful class that is very, very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. It's going to be PHP declare strict types equal true, namespace, it's going to be magma, it's going to be session, and that's it, because we're within that session directory, because that's where our session factory class is located. Say class session factory, and so we're going to create that public construct method, which we're going to be leaving empty for now. We don't have to create it because we might never use it, but we might do. So I'm going to leave it in there just for the time being. And the create method is going to take in 3 arguments. So I'm going to say create, and this is going to return the session interface. So let me bring these class in and use magma session. It's going to be session interface, right? So the first argument is going to be a string, and that's going to be that session name. So if I open up this session class again, because this is what we're trying to create an object of, this session class, right? And you can see what it's requiring the session name and the session storage interface. So we're going to be passing in any class that implements that storage interface. So the second argument is going to be a string as well, and it's going to be that storage. I'm going to call it storage string. And the third argument is an array of options. I'm going to initialize it with an empty array. And this options is what we've got within our native session storage and our abstract session storage, and that's that option argument we got in our constructor. And you're going to see how we pass that in. It's going to be very, very simple. So I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call it storage object. I'm going to say equal new storage string, yeah, because remember the second argument is going to be a reference, a namespace reference to whatever that storage object is that we're using. And at the moment we've only implemented one storage object, which is this native session storage. So that is what we're going to be passing in and instantiating, and that's what we're doing right here. And remember, this native session storage is got a constructor, and we're going to pass that options within that constructor. And this is how we're going to do it. Within this parentheses, just going to pass in that options, and that's it. And that option is the third argument within this create method, right? So we've got our storage session, our native storage session, which requires one argument within its constructor, and that's basically what we've just did. We've just passed that in. And if you look again, we got the parent construct, which is within that abstract class, and we simple passing that options into that abstract class. So we then get access to all the configurations that we're going to be defining within that YAML file that we've not yet created. I hope you get that. It was very simple. We've done it, and the factory pattern allows us to do it like this, which is one of my favorite patterns so far, apart from MVC obviously. So we're going to say if storage object is not an instance of session storage interface, then we're going to throw an exception. So I'm going to throw new, and call it storage. I'm going to call it session. Session storage invalid argument exception, and we've not yet created this class, so we can actually do that. Put that in here. It's going to be session storage invalid argument exception.php, and let's just quickly create this. It'll be declare strict types namespace, be magma, be session, and now we're in that exception directory. And say class, and say session storage invalid argument exception, and we're going to extend that invalid argument exception, and let's just bring that in. And this is a PHP class that we're bringing in. It's going to be invalid. There we go. And again, I'm going to be doing a separate video that we're going to be going over all of our error handling, and that's going to be completely dedicated to just going around and fixing up or tidying up all of these exception classes that we've been creating throughout. We're going to be going through them, tidying them up, and sort of like just making them as solid as possible. So close that out. We need to bring that in as well. Let's bring it in at the top. Use, again, that's just preference. You can put it wherever you want as long as it's within this space right here. Be session exception, and I've turned off some of the extension that I've downloaded the other night because they were sort of like popping up and blocking the screen. So again, it's not popping out like it was in the first video of, well, the first session video. Again, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I know what I'm doing, so I don't really need it. So it's gonna be session storage invalid argument exception, right? Which is what we're using down here. We can just pass a simple message in. I'm going to concatenate it with this variable of storage string and concatenate a little bit of text onto it saying storage string is not a valid session storage object. So if you're not implementing that session storage, well, you just won't get in. And you can see our native session storage, even though it's not implementing that interface, we're extending the abstract session storage, which is implementing that interface. So effectively, we are implementing that interface within our native session storage class. And remember, what we're trying to create an object of is our new session. So I'm going to return new session. So our session class, which is right here, is what we're instantiating and passing in those dependencies, which it contains two, and I believe those are session name and the session storage interface, and we're going to pass those in. So the session name is this argument within this create method. It's going to be session name, and the second argument is this object that we've just created, which is storage object. And that's pretty much how we're able to access the storage within these method. So we got this storage set session that's coming from our native session storage, and that is how we're able to actually use these properties, which is defined through this argument, because we've piped the storage property to that storage variable, which is in that constructor argument, which is type into to that session storage interface. I hope it's making sense to you guys. I hope this is really making sense, because it's very simple in what it's doing. We're not writing any complex code. It's very simple in what it's actually doing once you sort of like get your head around it. Right, so we know we've got our factory, and that's pretty much all our factory is doing, and that's pretty much it for our factory.